segue to our next quarterback, Justin Fields.
So one thing again I noticed is that Fields is still very fast on the NFL field. His speed is definitely one of the faster quarterbacks in the league. He's faster than Trey Lance for sure. Just when he takes off, he's got good speed. But also, his core around him didn't help him out too much. It felt like there wasn't guys really getting open much. And he held onto the ball trying to make plays. So I think it's a guy who, once again, I think Fields and Lance are the two where you're saying start them, but they probably aren't going to start. We saw Anthony Dalton is going to play. They played today, so Dalton won't play today. He's a lock to start week 1, according to Nagy. But I think he's close to starting. I think Fields can definitely be out there soon if Dalton isn't playing well, which is likely to happen because he's, obviously if Dalton was, a guy was going to lose his job, he wouldn't have been leaving, the teams that he's left, like the Bengals. And then obviously, Dallas is Dax.
In Dallas, he was horrible in Dallas.
Yeah, so, he wouldn't be, his third team in 3 years if he was a guy who deserved to be starting a whole year. So it'll be a matter of time. But you can see there's still some ways to go. Sometimes we held to the ball maybe a little too long. A couple of forced throws here and there. But obviously, and we'll discuss this with Lance as well, is a guy who elevates the offense. Obviously, as far as athletic ability and his downfield throwing. Just some things you can do with Fields that you probably won't do or cannot do with Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
So, ups and downs for sure. He wasn't all perfect. I think the only one who really was, I guess you can say, kind of Mac Jones and then Zach Wilson, who, weren't too many question marks during the games. But I think Fields showed a lot of potential, and I think he should be playing rather soon for the Bears.
I think, to be honest, I feel like Fields is probably the worst pocket quarterback in this draft. I didn't see a lot out of the pocket, but again, like you said, not a lot of people, like receivers, were getting open downfield, and you'd see him like run around and then like try to check it down to somebody incomplete, or it was kind of like the same with Trevor Lawrence. So just not a lot of weapons to throw to. But again, I think he definitely tried to stay in the pocket, and we could see that was his weakness, but obviously that was his weakness all along. So with Justin Fields, he was one of the more harder quarterbacks to scout, but he's definitely athletic ability will get him through a lot of games for sure. So let's see. Next one, we could go to Mac Jones.
So Mac Jones looks good. He looks to me, the best way to put it is he looks exactly like what the Patriots want. A guy who's going to stay within the confines of the offense. Obviously, he has no kind of athletic ability to do anything outside of the offense, but he'll be, like your ideal assistant quarterback. He's a guy who's going to do what the offensive coordinator and the coaches want on any given play. He's decisive, he's accurate, and he takes the shots when they're there. That's just, the feeling I got. He feels like a Bill Belichick quarterback, so to speak, and that's just the way. That's just the vibe that I got, and I think if Cam struggles at some point in the season, I think won't be surprising to see Mac Jones out there at some point.
Yeah, I agree. Mac Jones looked like, I was watching he's a natural, pocket passer. He would even step up.
He has the best pocket presence of the guys, for sure.
Yeah, he would step up in the pocket, and even some of his mobility was, way better than Jimmy's. And he really, he recognized when the pocket was collapsing, and in a few plays, especially against the Eagles, steps up in the pocket, delivers a dart, and always looking downfield. So he looked, natural thrower, great natural thrower like Zach Wilson is. And, pocket passing was his presence. Also, I think he's the one that benefits the most out of the offensive line. He is a great offensive line. So it's an overall great system fit because you have a good offensive line, good weapons around you. And he can utilize that basically. And with his little bit of mobility and accuracy, his accuracy was really good, probably second best in the draft. So I really liked what I saw out of Mac Jones. I don't think he's a bust. I'm just glad we got Trey Lance. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's definitely not a guy you draft in the top 10. Just seeing as how his ceiling is likely, either going to be Kirk Cousins or Ryan Tannehill type.
Yeah.
That's not. Those are And this day and age, we have more guys who have the big arms and mobility. That's not the kind of guy you draft, above top 10. But for the Patriots, I think it probably was the best place he could have landed. And just to me, well, it wasn't. The Niners would have been, but of the teams he could have went to, past outside of the top 10, the Patriots were probably the best. And just throughout the whole draft process, I felt like it was inevitable. Like Mac Jones, the Patriots was going to happen. That's just the vibe I got. He felt like a Patriots quarterback. And a couple months later, here you are. Mac Jones and the Patriots, and he looks like he's going to be good for them. I think
he looks so much like it's probably just the number 10, but he looks so much like Jimmy G. I feel like he honestly looks bigger than Jimmy G.
Jimmy Garoppolo back with the Patriots looks good. He looks similar to how Mac Jones looked in that preseason. So I mean, I won't sit here and say that it's a knock. And obviously for Jimmy, he's a second round pick, so that's even better. You're not always going to get a star quarterback. If you're getting a starter out of a second round pick, that's a good thing. At least at quarterback, because the top guys never go in the first round.
Yeah.
But for the Patriots, just going from Tom Brady to Jimmy G, and then we saw it was a bit different with Cam having a guy with more mobility, and then they went and we see a year later they draft a guy who is more towards what they prefer from quarterback and Mac Jones. And I think so far what we saw in Alabama is what we saw in the preseason. He's a guy who's good in the pocket, accurate, decisive. He's had some solid deep ball throws that haven't been caught, but they were good passes. The drop from N'Keal Harry in the Eagles game, that was a good throw. In the first game against Washington, he had the good pass downfield that was also dropped. So, or against the cornerback got a hand on, but he can stretch the field. We've seen that. It's really just gonna be about his supporting cast. That's what's gonna elevate or lower him in his performance. He's a guy who will only be as good as the team around him and the coaches around him.
Exactly.
But the team around him right now is good. So as whenever he plays, I think he'll look good.
Do you think it was slightly do you think it was slightly the Eagles' defense that night? I mean, I felt like they were playing awful. It was
the Eagles were. I mean, they didn't score in that game, so
they were so bad.
The Eagles are. It's going to be a rough year for them, most likely. We're for Nick Sirianni in that group, but at the same time, he's not going to take away from what he did on the field.
Exactly, and I think. I mean, Bill Belichick, really, I think this is partly Mac Jones, his mind, but it's like it was even with Jimmy Garoppolo, with Bill Belichick or Tom Brady. It's a lot of Bill Belichick scheming, and he does this. He's the biggest old school coach, to be honest, because he always picks these quarterbacks, but he always does the best with them. So
because he doesn't want the guys to mess it up for him.
Exactly.
And these mobile guys have a tendency to try to create something out of nothing. And sometimes, there's pros and cons to that. Sometimes you get a big play. Sometimes you get a big turnover. So, Bill Belichick doesn't want to have to worry about that. He wants the guys, is going to stay in the confines of the offense and do what it is that they game plan and what they scheme to do.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones is going to be the guy to do that. And he was the best guy in this draft class for that. And so far, he looks like that.
So we will get into